Also, just to realize, like, it's one moment in time.
Totally.
Then in that moment in time, it seems like the worst moment in time, and that's all anyone thinks about. But everyone forgets and moves on. And I mean, similar to Michael Jordan, like you're going to have so many missed shots, so many failures in life, but you just like, you need to keep going and overcoming that. And I mean, if you only had success and that's all you ever known, you're never going to grow as an athlete or a person. Like you need to go through those hard times, through those tough moments in order to grow as a person, or as an athlete or as a business person, whatever you're doing in your life. That's how you become the best possible version of yourself.
Totally. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ALLSMITH, where we dive deep into mindset, resilience, and the lifestyle of high performers. Today, I'm really excited to introduce one of my favorite humans on the planet. She's gone through the peaks and valleys of the human experience, and she's a legendary CrossFit athlete, weightlifter, and entrepreneur, Miss Lauren Fisher.
Thank you, Bryce.
Lauren's been a dominant force in the CrossFit world since she was a teenager, competing at the highest level, repping Team USA in weightlifting, and inspiring countless athletes with her relentless work ethic. But beyond competition, she's the founder of Grown Strong, a movement dedicated to empowering women to embrace strength, confidence, and resilience, both inside and outside of the gym. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bryce. You nailed that.
Every now and then I get it right, but more importantly, I'm thankful to carve out some time to spend with you outside of the four walls of the Invictus gym, where we've spent years together. And
literally since, like, what has it been, 2016?
Long time. I mean, I started Invictus in 2014, and I know you started CrossFit in 2008. What year did you get to Invictus?
2013 was when I first moved to Invictus because I went to school at San Diego State.
Yeah. And I love that story. You told it on the most recent YouTube video that I watched, which is, hey, I'm done. and I love that story about the relationship with your mom, where she was just like, hey, we're going to go to this place. And you guys drove past and you saw Camille, Josh Bridges, Cheryl Brost, all the people. Would you mind sharing that story with our listeners?
Yeah, so the first time I went to Invictus, well, let's back it up a little bit. I competed in 2012 regionals, and my coach at the time, Gabe Subry, who was a multi-time games athlete, had talked with CJ Martin because he knew I was going to be going to San Diego State University. So he knew I wanted to pursue CrossFit more. So he's like, hey, CJ, do you think Lauren could come to your gym and train at Invictus? And CJ was like, yeah, we would love that. We're actually hosting like a athlete camp in the summer. Like, I'll contact her, connect with her. Yeah, so I ended up showing up that summer to go to Invictus, and I just remember my mom, like, we showed up and I saw all these big time like games athletes that I looked up to, and I was just like, Mom, I'm way too nervous. Like, I don't want to go in. Like, we drove past and my mom was like, no, we're going in. She parked the car and my mom got out and started walking in. Well, I'm like, well, I just can't stay in the car. I have to go follow behind her. And so I followed behind my mom, and I was just like so nervous going in. And then I think the first person that came up was Karen Martin, of course, and said,
Team Mom.
Yeah, Team Mom. And she's like, welcome to Invictus, and just like immediately made me feel like at home. And yeah, I mean, that weekend kind of solidified, like, I'm super excited to move to San Diego and start training at Invictus. And I just remember back then, though, I was like so shy and nervous and just like willing to learn and like ready to learn. And it was just like so cool to be able to train with all those top athletes.
That's so cool to hear. I love the way your passion lights up when you think about like those early years, because you're transitioning, right? Like, basketball was your forte, and then you're figuring out the next chapter of life, which is this college experience. You're like, how do I pair that with my other really like big passion, which is CrossFit? Why did you ultimately end up choosing San Diego State?
San Diego State was the first college I got into, and I was like, I don't want to go there.
Really?
I didn't want to go there.
The sunshine wasn't a selling point for you?
No, I guess every time I had been to San Diego, it just felt so big. I just felt like I never really knew where we were going. Like, my mom would take me to go to basketball tournaments, and it was just so big. And I also didn't want to move away too far from home.
Yeah.
And in Southern California, I mean, it's like a 7-hour drive from Northern California, where I grew up from. And I really wanted to go to Santa Clara University because my brother Garrett was going to San Jose State University, and he was already then training with Jason Khalipa,
Yep.
Neil Maddox, Miranda Oldroyd. So a lot of like great athletes at NC Fit back in the day. So I was like, I really want to go to Santa Clara because then I can train with all of them and really pursue CrossFit. I didn't get into Santa Clara University, and I was like crying. And Garrett was like, and I also got into San Jose State, and I was like, well, I could go to San Jose State with you. And Garrett was like, why don't you go to San Diego State? If you don't like it, you can always move back and go to San Jose State with me. Like, try something different, try something new. And so
That's cool.
that's what I did. I listened to my brother, and I ended up going to San Diego State. And yeah, I mean, it led me to the life that I'm living now, which is pretty crazy.
That's so special. Wow. Good job, Garrett. That's badass. I also think, my journey into CrossFit started right when I got back from Sweden. I ended up finding my way into Valley CrossFit with Chris Clever, Becca Voigt, Lindsay Valenzuela, Katie Hogan, the Valley girls back in the day.
So that was one of the other trips I made with my mom. We went, because I got into Loyola Marymount.
Yep.
So I wanted to go train with the Valley girls, and I went to the CrossFit gym as well where they were training. And I don't know, when I went to the Invictus camp, I loved like getting to meet all of them, but Invictus, it felt a little bit different.
There's a different feeling for sure. I'd also have to credit like CJ and Karen as far as like the leadership and the umbrella structure that was created in Invictus early on. I'm sure that's from CJ's background as a lawyer, but like Valley was dope, but it was kind of clustery. Like it was just everybody's kind of on the beat of their own drum. Plus, like the location of Valley was in Van Nuys. LMU's pretty far commute. Yeah. And in LA traffic, that would have been really tough for you to like sustain.
Yeah, that was one of the other things I was looking at. I was like, that would have been really far.
Totally. But it's just so crazy because back in the day, it was like Valley, NorCal, and Brick. And then all of a sudden, like you go to regionals and like Invictus was in the mix. And it was like the sea of green. You're like doing thrusters and you look up and all you see is green shirts. You're like, whoa. This is kind of dope. Like something about the community infiltration is really special.
Those were the good days back at regionals. Like you had Brick CrossFit wearing all orange. Invictus wearing all green. I mean, there's a great picture from the 2013 regionals when I was on the team, and my friend Heather Hibbensteel was like doing a dumbbell snatch, and you just see like the different colors.
I know the exact picture you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a pretty dope picture.
Yeah, that's freaking cool. Speaking of Heather, she's special. She and I have gone to various competitions together. You formulated some really long-term relationships through CrossFit. Like, before we unpack the specificity of your story, like, what does that mean to you? Like, I heard somebody yesterday talk about, like, hey, there's battleships, and there's these kinds of ships, and there's those kinds of ships. But the most important ship is friendships. And Jose actually told me that story from a friend of ours. And I don't know, what do you feel about that? Because you have to put time, energy, and emotion into those. You and Heather aren't always in the same place, and she's one of many friendships that you fostered over the years. What kind of comes up for you when you think about the friendships that were formulated through CrossFit?
I mean, my best friends, I think, were formed through CrossFit. It's pretty cool. I actually just FaceTime Heather the other day. Like, she's like a sister to me. I can just like randomly FaceTime, and we haven't talked in like 2 months and just like catch up. She's that type of friend. And I just remember in my early days at Invictus when I met Heather, and she was like, I have 3 siblings, and she talked about how she was homeschooled and she like really enjoyed CrossFit, and we just like had so many similarities, and like she became like my really good friend, like a bigger sister to me that I never had because I grew up with 3 older brothers, and like so many great friendships came out of it. I mean, also too, like Nicole DeHart, like one of my good friends at Invictus, like we still every now and then stay in touch. And then obviously my husband came out of me moving to San Diego to Invictus, and Rasmus like first moved to Invictus to go to English school in 2013. So around the same time I had moved there. And so from there, I mean, we've been dating now since 2014 for 10 years and now married for 2 years. So it's pretty cool that all came out of me moving to San Diego to go to San Diego State and train at Invictus.
I love the way you said that, Lauren, because it makes me a little emotional, but like you step back and you try to watch this, not from your point of view, not from mine, but maybe like from a bird's eye view. And you're like, man, what chess pieces had to be maneuvered? That conversation with Garrett, You had to feel comfortable at Invictus. Your mom had to make that decision to kind of like push you a little bit to get you in those doors. You were kind of taking a leap of faith to go to San Diego State and hope for the best, but you're not really sure. Like, you can't see light at the end of the tunnel. All those chess pieces had to be moved in order for you to meet Rasmus. And then he had his own chess pieces that had to be moved to get there. And like, I don't know, I self-reflect a little bit. And I remember some of those early days and some of those funny stories, like, you know, the awkwardness of like trying to meet each other, trying to go on walks. And, you know, I have some funny stories from Razzle Dazzle. But like, I don't know, it just makes me look up and think about like God and faith, and like certain people are put on this planet to like teach you something. Obviously there's painful lessons, which you've experienced as well. But then there's also like the beautiful ones that like they pan out and you're like, now you can't imagine your life without Rasmus.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what does that kind of come up? What comes up for you there when you think about like the chess pieces that have to be moved in order for your life to be exactly where it is now? Like, you're wearing the ring. You just got back from 5 different amazing retreats with Ras. You're running a business together. You're living life at the beat of your own drum. But all these things before had to kind of fall into alignment to get you to the now.
Yeah. I mean, it is pretty crazy. I think about it all the time. Like, both of us think about, how did I meet my husband who was all the way from Denmark? Like, his family still lives in Denmark, so we make trips probably like once or twice a year back to Denmark. But it's just like, we're so similar. Like, he grew up in the country, I grew up in the countryside. Like, we both love eating. Like, we just like, we both love fitness, which I think obviously plays a key part in our relationship. And like, we've just like really grown together over the years. I mean, now he's been part of like 1/3 of my life. I'm 30 years old, 31 now. And so he's been, yeah, it's just like crazy to think like how it all kind of played together. And I was just like, I feel like he was like meant for me. Like, he's like, obviously I'm a little bit like more, I come off shy. I'm like not the type of person who will socialize with new people. Until I get to know you, then I can talk my heart out. But like, Rasmus can like go up to anyone and make conversation, and like he can keep the conversation going. So, you know, like sometimes if we're going on like a double date with like a new couple or whatever, like he can be the one who just keeps the conversation going, and I can just sit there and relax. And I'm just like, literally, I feel like we're like meant for each other. And like, he's like so fun and adventurous, and I'm like the type of person, like, I'm fun, but I'm not as fun as Rasmus. And like, he makes everyone like laugh in the room. So it's just, we really balance each other out. And I think that's like really special about relationships. You definitely have that like yin and yang that balance each other out.
I love that you took the words right out of my mouth, the yin and the yang. And like, I also think it's cool, right? Like, Ras can like set the table. He can kind of create the space and the ambience and the container. And then it's like, you're kind of observing. You sit back and you watch the situation. You're like, you pick your spots a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're not like all in right away. You're like, should I trust this person?
Yeah.
Should I play? And then all of a sudden when you're in, you're like, all right, I can yap a little bit.
That's exactly how I am.
I love it. Garrett's similar, which is super cool. What was it like looking up to Garrett a little bit, where it's like, you know, he's in pursuit of this high performance baseball career, ends up at San Jose State, doesn't work out exactly the way he wants, but then he ends up in this CrossFit space, and all of a sudden he's with some heavy hitters, and all of a sudden you see like the dial of his potential just starting to turn up, and he's in the limelight, and he's doing some big things. He's alongside Jason Khalipa. He's then like the best hair in CrossFit, and they snatch him more than everybody else. And you just see like this like upward trajectory. What was it like to be able to like have him just a few steps ahead when you were really young, trying to figure out those next steps for your career?
I think he definitely like paved the way for my CrossFit career. Just like, I mean, early on when I was still in high school and he was still in high school, like he drove me to CrossFit 209. We would go train together.
That's
and
cool.
Then like when he moved away to school and started training at NC Fit, I would make trips to go like visit and train with him. And I feel like, you know, those early things that I learned from like him training with Jason and like little tips and tricks he would give me, like he was like my number one supporter, like my number one fan. And I think that really helped, you know, develop me into the athlete that, you know, I was later on in life. And so I definitely wouldn't have been like the person I am without like my brother guiding me through the way.
For sure. And Garrett's also like, he's so fun because he's a little shit talker too.
He is.
And so like that calluses you a little bit, right? Like you being the youngest and kind of with these 3 older brothers, it's like they're going to shit talk you. They're going to push you a little bit. They're going to call you out on whatever things. And early on, you know, it might be this sensitivity complex of like challenging and this tension that goes between you guys. But now, you know, it's always a mystery looking forward, but science looking back. You look back, you're like, oh, I'm able to do what I do now, and I don't take all these things personal because these guys were poking at me since I was just a youngin'.
Literally. I mean, that's kind of like how I grew up. My brothers treated me like one of them. So, you know, I would go to my brothers' like baseball or basketball practices, and I was the only girl. And my dad, you know, he was the coach back like when it was like the early days. So like I was able to like join in, and I think that really like toughened me up because they all just treated me like one of the boys. And even if my brother's friends would come over, we were playing basketball outside, and they would push me in the bushes. And like one of my favorite stories is then like I went inside to my mom and I was crying, and my mom was like, well, you can stay inside with me and keep crying, or you can wipe your tears off and go out and continue to play. So then like there I'd go wipe my tears off and go back outside.
Wow, that's cool.
To play with them. So I think like all those like little stories back in the day definitely like developed me into like the person that I am, and I just don't take anything from anyone.
I can't help but smirk when I hear that because I had this story. I'm the youngest, and I have an older brother and older sister. And of all things, my brother and I used to play one-on-one tackle football. I don't know why. Before, like, he had gone through puberty, was big and strong, and I was just this little, like, pipsqueak, just, like, trying to hang on by a thread. And he would always tackle me onto a fucking sprinkler.
Oh, my God.
And it would hurt so bad. And I remember running inside, like, complaining to my dad. And he's like, did you choose to play? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, then you have to accept, you know, the environment that's going to be a part of the field of play. He was like, go figure it out. And I'm like, he's doing it on purpose. He's like, I don't care. Like, find a way, go figure it out. And I remember at the time I hated my dad and my brother because of it. But then later on in life, when adversity started just punching me in the face, I was like, you know what? Like, life's not happening to me. It's happening for me. How do we learn this? What is it teaching me? And I didn't realize at the time. I was like so frustrated. I was like, nobody's on my team. Rah. But then it's like you figure it out over the course of time. You're like, whoa, those were some of the like most special moments that formulated me into the man of now. And it sounds like you had some cool similar experiences in your upbringing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like the way you grew up definitely shapes you into the person you are. And I mean, my oldest brother, Andrew, he was very much like dialed into his routine. Like he actually like, he wasn't the most, I would say the most talented out of us kids, but he definitely like worked so hard. Like I remember when he wanted to like make the high school basketball team, they were a very good basketball team, like one of the best in the nation. And he would literally wake up at like 5 a.m., go outside and like play basketball. And like he had his full little like routine of what he would do. And he also got like straight A's, and he was really good in school. And I think that kind of then set the standard for everyone else, because then all my other brothers were like, wow, I also need to work really hard and work hard in school as well. And, you know, then me being the youngest, I'm like, I don't know what it's like to like fail in school. I see all my brothers doing really well, but also doing really well in sports, and it takes hard work. And so, yeah, since I was the last, I just followed in their footsteps.
I love that. That's also beautiful. The line, just set the standard, right? Because there is a psychological like, hey, this is what they're doing. If I want to receive the love, the validation, and the attention from mom and dad, like I gotta meet that. Mm-hmm. And also like, you know, just the gender difference, right? Like, they're all the boys. I want to be the best girl. Like, I want to do the thing. And I just think that's so special. But also just looking at you now, you see all the different spokes in the wheel, right? And it's like, you know, we can get into this conversation later, but it's like there's performance in sport. Then there's academics, like you talked about back in the day. And then as you evolve over the course of time, there's faith, there's finance, there's fun, there's travel, there's business relationships, there's sponsorships, there's obligations, there's the messiness and complexities of challenges and problems that arise. All these spokes in the wheel start to grow. But if you can battle and navigate the kind of the messiness of like school and sports early on, it kind of grooms you for what's to come in adulthood.
Definitely. I mean, I feel like back then, though, we had it so easy and we thought it was so hard to navigate sports and academics. But now with life, just like, I mean, everything you said, like there's so much to navigate in daily life. And yeah, I mean, I see it now that because for the past 10 years, all I've known is competing and training. My whole like routine in life has revolved around the CrossFit Games. And now that I'm retired, I mean, that's one thing I see in itself. It's like okay, I'm not spending 8:30 to 11:30 and 1:30 to 4:30 in the gym every day. It's like now navigating my new lifestyle, and there's just so many different factors that come into play.
Yeah, totally.
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
Something that's coming up for me, Lauren, that I wanted to touch with you on is increased work capacity across broad time and modal domains. When you think about that, it's how CrossFit kind of defines fitness. But I don't agree that it's work capacity. I think it's increased fitness capacity across broad time and modal domains, because when you were training 6 hours a day, the other stuff of life was really tough, right? Like, how do you fit in a Grown Strong photo shoot? How do you jump on this call? How do you then, talk strategy with Chandler and your teammates at the end of your career? How do you have these hard conversations with your parents, with Rasmus? There's so many miscellaneous factors, and by the time you get to those things, the bank account or the gas tank close to empty, because you've given so much to training. And I'm curious your thoughts on that, in the sense of, you look at Kobe, and it's like you said, he was waking up early, but he was still a father. He was still doing all these things, navigating relationships and business and branding. It's tough. Like, CrossFit is so different than any other sport because there's so many different energy systems, so many different expectations. There's the unknown and unknowable. It's exhausting. It's like anxiety producing. How the fuck did you do it for as long as you did? 12 years is a long time.
It is a very long time. If you look back at 2013, when I first moved to Invictus, we only trained 2 hours a day. So trained from 1 to 3. And that was early days. And then 2014 was the year I wanted to go individual. So CJ started programming double days for me. And that was a big thing because no one was really doing double days. But my double day was maybe going in to do bodybuilding or accessory work, or maybe an additional conditioning piece. But it really wasn't to the level
that. Was it beating you up so bad?
Yeah, it wasn't beating me up so bad. And then come 2015, I think, were you around in 2015?
Yeah.
We started doing triple days.
Yeah. That was insane.
That was insane. We started, I think we trained from 9. It was shorter sessions, but we pretty much, had trained in the morning, trained in the afternoon, then did something in the evening. And I just remember I was starting to already feel burnt out. I was really fit come the open. I think that was my best open finish. But I was starting to get so burnt out. But obviously, I had just come off finishing 9th place at the CrossFit Games. So this next year, I wanted to place even higher.
Mm-hmm. You got a taste of oh man, I'm in the top 10. I want to go get it.
Yeah, exactly. But then that same year, I sprained my ankle right before regionals. And then that kind of was the downfall of my ankle in my career. And then I was come 2016, I was okay, triple days I think might have been a little bit too much. And I think I started to dial it back. So it's over my career, I learned kind of what my body needed. But then come around 2020 or so, I felt a little bit stagnant. And that was also the same time around COVID. And I think 2021, I tried to go individual, and I ended up hurting my elbow that season, but I still I didn't feel like I belonged with any of the top girls anymore. I just felt like I wasn't good enough. And I was just geez, I'm training so much, but I'm not getting better. And then that same year, Annie asked me to move to Iceland to do the team with her in 2022. And I think that was the year, I really regained my fire again and figured out okay, I can still hang with the very best. Yeah. And then moving to Iceland, I learned just how she trained. And it wasn't necessarily about volume. It was about making each session training with intent. And when you do a CrossFit workout, do it at high intensity. Like, don't just do it at 80% because you have 3 other CrossFit Metcons later in the day. And so I think, just from answering your question, I think over the years it's completely shifted. And I guess my why has changed over the years that kept me coming back. But then I guess this past year, that was probably the toughest of them all, because I knew kind of this past season it was going to be my last season, and I really wanted to win the CrossFit Games on a team, and that was like my biggest goal, and just go out on top. And then obviously everything happened at the CrossFit Games, and it just was like, wow, this really sucks. I trained so much for something like this to happen. I mean, my season almost got taken away from me in the middle of last year, getting under a 235-pound clean. I injured my quad, felt a pop, and I was down on the ground, and I couldn't walk later that day. I was like, my season is over. So I could just tell my body and my mind was like, when it's time to step away.
Yeah. But what's beautiful, Lauren, is that you've done a great job, at least from the outside looking in, from my perspective, of always listening to that internal whisper. And, going backwards a little bit, we'll kind of touch on all the different storytelling elements that you just mentioned. But, even basketball, like, what led you originally to basketball early on? Like, why did it grab your heart? Like, why was it something that really you wanted to put your time, energy, and attention into?
Man, I have never been asked that question, but in 3rd grade, I started basketball, and I remember I was just naturally really good at it. I mean, my brothers played baseball and basketball. I did softball for a little bit, but I don't know, for some reason, I just really enjoyed basketball. I guess maybe we had a basketball hoop at home. It's easy to play by yourself when you're training for basketball compared to like softball or whatever. You can go out and hit like balls, but it's just a little bit different. I feel like basketball, you can really just be by yourself and just shooting outside. And I don't know, it's just something about, it's just so relaxing when you're just like outside playing by yourself, shooting hoops, and you get one in, you want to get another one in, and then you like try to like set little games with yourself. Okay, now I'm going to go for 10 in a row. I'm going to go for 15 in a row. And so I really enjoyed that early on, and I was naturally really good at it. So like, 3rd, 4th grade, I like maybe the scoreboard was like 9-6 at one of our games, but I scored like all 9 points for our team. So cool. And I was like one of the smallest players, and my parents were the coaches, and it was just like so much fun. Like, I had other friends who were doing it. So, it was like I played in the CYO, so Catholic Youth Organization. And so I had other friends from other schools, and, it was just cool to connect with them. And I also just really enjoyed it. And then, I started then getting into travel basketball early on, because then I knew I wanted to go play for a specific high school in Stockton, which was like the best in the nation. They had all the college scouts coming out to watch their games. So they kind of like, they groom their kids early on. Like, you start from a young age. So by the time you're in the high school program, you know exactly how to do the full court press, like literally everything. Like, so that's kind of how it all started for me.
That's so special. The other thing that's cool to me is we talk about it a lot in the transition from working for somebody into entrepreneurship, which is that middle ground, it's the misunderstood lonely chapter. And with you being the only girl, it's like, okay, you relate to your brother, you're trying to do all these things, but then there's a moment in time where your body starts to change, boys start coming into the world, and you're just like, whoa, these guys don't get it. I don't really have like a sister to look up to. And then like, later in life, you connect with Heather, you connect with Nicole, you start to formulate these relationships that almost are seemingly sister bonds. But it also sounds to me, based on, your storytelling of your career, that you also really gravitated towards the team component. You very much liked, when Garrett kind of stepped away from his competition, you're like, wait, I don't really have a path to follow anymore. Like, I don't really know what's to come next. And so you dove into this basketball thing. You're figuring out yourself. Basketball kind of felt like home. It gave you a place to kind of navigate the Lauren Fisher messy middle of the headspace and transition in life. And it was a place where you could feel the roll off the fingertips. You could hear the swish in the net. You could hear the bounce of the ball. And it was like, hey, everything in life could be a little bit messy, but this is a place that's always consistent. And that eventually led to CrossFit, which is like, the world can tell you you're God's gift, or it could tell you you're a bastard and a horrible human, but 200 pounds is always 200 pounds, right? That famous quote from Henry Rollins around the iron never lies. And when you look at yourself, like, When did you first get introduced to CrossFit, and how did it satisfy that feeling of like, oh, this is something that I want to play with after basketball?
Yeah, so 2008 was when I first got introduced to CrossFit, and it was my two brothers, Ryan and Garrett, were using it as an extra strength and conditioning program.
For baseball specifically,
specifically. And
Cool.
they were like, Lauren, we're training with Vince Carter. And I was so naive. I was like, Vince Carter, the basketball player? And they were like, yeah, Vince Carter, the basketball player.
That's dope.
And I was like, that would have been so cool. And I went to a training session, got disappointed immediately because it wasn't Vince Carter, the basketball player. I got put through my first CrossFit session, and I was immediately hooked.
Wait, hold on. So Vince Carter unlocked this whole career in your life. We got to get Vince on the show.
Yeah, got to get Vince on the show. Yeah, no, they're doing really well still at CrossFit 209. I think it's called Human Improvement Project 209. It's one of the biggest like gym facilities in Stockton, California. So
Bay Area.
Yeah, they're like definitely developing a lot of athletes out there too. But yeah, so I did my first session, CrossFit session, and I immediately got hooked. And for me, I love the feeling of competing against like myself and competing against the clock. Like, cause I'm naturally a very competitive person, and just like the endorphins you get too after the workout. Like I felt so good. It wasn't like now, when you're training so much, you don't feel good after workout. Like back then when you're training like an hour, like when you're doing a class workout, you just feel so good after. And, I went in, he told me what to do. Like he put me through a warm up. Like I've always enjoyed when other people coach me. I mean, I had my own personal trainer when I was 10 years old, and I've just always enjoyed when people tell me what to do. And I remember too, I was the only girl at the CrossFit session as well. There was like a lot of football players, and I liked competing against them. So when my brothers
I'm smaller than you, but I'm about to beat you.
Yeah, but so when my brothers, graduated from high school, it would be like me and all the football players, and I'd always want to beat everyone like in the CrossFit session. So that was always just so much fun. And then, then I started doing some more class because I wanted to do a little bit more. And then, it'd be me against the CrossFit moms as well. Like I just get so competitive in the class. I'd always want to win the workout. Totally. And I think that's just naturally how I am. And I loved like how it was always changing every day. You never knew what the workout you were going to do. So I loved how it was always different, and it made me wanting to like come back and do it more.
I love that. When did everything when did the dial turn even to a higher dosage of pressure for you? Because you performed really well early on. You had a very high finish at the CrossFit Regionals, where you finished third and qualified for the CrossFit Games. And then expectations start to arise. And around that time, sponsorships within the space start to knock on your door. And you were one of the first people to get Nike knocking on your door early on when they made the Metcon. Like, that had to feel really good. But it also probably came with expectations. It came with behind the scenes hard conversations. It came with money and all the things that kind of like make professional sports awesome, but also terrible. What was that experience like for you? Kind of like, hey, I love doing this thing, but now it's a life, it's a career, and you're still trying to finish school. You're trying to navigate relationships. There's a lot of moving parts going on for you.
In 2014, I took 9th at the CrossFit Games, and I actually had no expectations going into that year. I was still, brand new to the space. Obviously, I had achieved my goal of going to the CrossFit Games, and that was like, the fairy tale, like the pinnacle on top, like qualifying for the CrossFit Games. So for me, I wanted to go there and have fun. I was going to be like competing against all these girls I looked up to, like Julie Fouché, Annie Thorisdottir, Camille, and just to be there was like so special. And then I think because I had no expectations, then I placed my highest because I was having fun. Yeah. And then come 2015, that was when we started doing triple days, and like the sponsors started coming in, and I was the first like Nike female athlete. They ended up coming out with my own Nike Metcon that same year, right before regionals. It was like the Tiffany blue with the black Nike Metcon.
Oh, I can see it now.
And that was when I think the pressure, I started to feel it more. And I was just like, I was telling you, I was getting burnt out a little bit with the triple days. And then there was so much pressure around Lauren Fisher. She's one of the youngest. She's going to be someone to look out for this year. And I could definitely just feel all the pressure and expectations. And then, when we were practicing for regionals, and it was Tommy V, and it was the second to last rope climb, I jumped down and I twisted my ankle and literally yelled out and was crying could not walk. My ankle was so swollen. And I was like, my season is done. Like, it's pretty much done. And like, I was just getting all the treatment, was not able to have a proper like training into the regionals. I had to get a cortisone shot to like reduce the swelling, and I ended up not qualifying that year. And I was also at the same time, I think I was starting to date Rasmus too more, and it was just like, it was a lot. And I think just being like 20, 21 years old to navigate all of that, and also too with like social media pressures. I mean, nowadays I can't even imagine the girls now, because there's so many, like, back then I didn't really have like, oh, you have to post this on your Instagram or you have to post this on your stories, but there still is social media and people commenting on things, and you know, you are hearing like a lot of like the naysayers and all of that. So it was like really hard to navigate that back then. And then that was the same year then we got asked to do the team at games, and then, you know, after you guys had the team at Invictus won in 2014. And then now it was like Rasmus, me, and Brian Miller coming on the team, and CJ had said like, oh, this is even a better team. Like, we're definitely going to win back-to-back like games titles. And then, you know, because of that, there was just so much pressure going into it. Then we performed worse and we did terrible. So I think when you have all that pressure and expectations and you just like don't play your game, you end up doing worse.
No, totally. It's such a great picture that you just painted. It makes me really think about, like, because you have a basketball background, the pressure that LeBron has faced his entire career. I mean, being the cover of Sports Illustrated, all the accolades that he received all over ESPN in high school. And now he's had a 20-plus year career. He's in his 40s, and he's still doing it at a high level. And every day there's somebody knocking on his door about some problem. And to be narrow-focused, keep taking care of his body, the injuries that take place, everybody criticizing this, the social media that, sponsors high, sponsors low, making money, losing money. Does it give you a newfound respect? Because it's like you deal with a lot of attention, but you can only imagine what someone like LeBron or Justin Bieber deals with.
I can't even imagine. Like, I mean, Rasmus always says it best. Like, sometimes when I'm like, so many people care about like what I do or expectation, Rasmus is always like, you know, no one really cares what you're doing, Lauren. Like, for example, when I had announced I was retired, Ras was like, right before I'd published the video on Instagram and YouTube, he was like, don't be disappointed if the video doesn't do as well as like you wanted it to do. Like, if no one really, like, you know, for example, if like the YouTube video only got like 1,000 views, and I'm like, wow, no one really cares about like what I had done over my career. And he was like, don't be disappointed. He's like, you're not some like big name celebrity ever. You're just Lauren Fisher. You're not like, no one really cares. So he always, I think, grounds me and makes me like realize like, yeah, like a lot of people don't really care what I do, but to be someone like LeBron James where millions of people are following him, or Justin Bieber, like I can't even imagine that level of pressure that they're dealing, because if I'm feeling that like little bit of pressure that I do, imagine like 100-folding that almost.
Mm-hmm. I think it's beautiful and terrible at the same time, in the sense of like Ras is right. Like, nobody cares. But then again, there are people that care.
Yeah.
And so it's like he's right and wrong. He's both. And I also think that like when I've spoken in that seat to some of the world's highest performers, you know what they crave? Anonymity. They crave to actually not be known. They want to live their life. Their version of success is actually peace. And I sat with that for a moment. I was like, whoa, we're all stuck in the rat race. We're trying to do more. We're trying to be more. We're trying to make more impact, more. But it's like, we're not human doings. We're human beings. And that's what really gravitated me towards really wanting to connect with you, because it's like you've been a high performer, go-getter, trying to get higher on the ladder for so long. But now I observe, and something I think about a lot with the podcast now, I don't actually care how many views I get. You know what I care about? Being able to have honest conversation with people that I love and care about, and learn and think, you know what, this is a blank canvas and I get to hold the paintbrush and I get to kind of tinker with it. And something about that, it's like when I get to the end of my life, I'm not going to think about views or likes. I'm going to think about the special memories, the relationships, and the deep, meaningful conversations that we had. And I think you relate to that in relation to your mom.
Oh, I 100% relate to that. I think my mom always told me to like stay humble and to never like get too big or whatever. So I've always, you know, just remember where I came from. And I think throughout my career, I always took an extra second to like take pictures with the fans, even, you know, if I'm rushing to go like compete in the next workout, and just remembering like where I came from, or if there was like a little girl who says they like really looked up to me and, you know, wanted a picture, wanted me to sign something. And I just remember that used to be me. So like, you know, if I'm saying like, oh, I don't have time for this, like, can you imagine how heartbroken they are? They're like their idol that they look up to, their role model. Like, I just have always tried to make time for my community. And even early on, that's kind of how I grew my social media following. Was I literally answered every single DM. I answered like every single comment because I wanted my community to know that I cared. Like, I wasn't growing my social media following because I wanted to grow it to 1 million or do it for the likes or views. I was doing it because I genuinely cared about my community. And now, I mean, it's so hard to like stay on top of it because I am getting a point in my life. I'm just like, geez, social media is so overwhelming. It's obviously given me so many opportunities and has given me so much success with our business, but it is a lot to stay on top of. And I'm like, at some point, I would love to just like, you know, not have to post on social media because I have to, only because I want to. Like, I want to get to a point where, yeah, I'm just like not spending all my time on social media. And eventually when Rasmus and I start a family, it's like, how do you navigate that part of your life as well? It's like, do I want my kids like being seen on social media all the time? Like, there's so many different things like to navigate, but I've always known from the very like beginning, I think my mom just was very selfless and she didn't care about much. She didn't care if anyone knew about her. My mom, like, for her, it was God, family, and like that was like the two most important things in her life. And she would just do anything to make the family happy. And eventually, like, I hope I can be just as good of a mom as my mom was, because she was pretty amazing.
That's so cool. Isn't it interesting how as young people, we're striving to grow up and get to this version of success that we painted in our head. And then over the course of time, it's like we spend our life trying to go back to the humility and the nurturing, loving component that we felt with mom and dad. It's like we want to leave the home, but then we want to come back.
Yeah.
And not necessarily comebacks in specificity, but like recreate this in your own life, which is really cool. And I also want to note that, like, from my observation, it felt that way too. The way you communicate on social, the way you actually take time to write a caption. I mean, how many people now just like throw up an emoji or something? It's kind of lazy. The video is dope, but it's like you didn't actually put time and thought into that. I'm a man of words. I think language matters. I love storytelling, so I don't want to speak for everybody, but I like your captions. I think they're super cool. And also there comes a human component, right? Where there's scalability. You're one woman in this big world. You're trying to run retreats. You're trying to train. You're trying to build actual meaningful relationships. And you also want to have the boundaries to not let everybody into your intimate world with Rasmus. And that's okay. And so I do think the right people recognize that. So maybe as you evolve, and we're playing with this too, it's like, maybe it's not about the totality of volume. Maybe it's about the concentration of the really cool, deep, meaningful relationships that you can continue to foster. And over the course of time, hand the keys over a little bit and delegate a little bit of your social media. Not all of it, but some of it. And like, what are your thoughts on that? Because scaling one person is tough. You don't want the communication to ever feel inauthentic. You don't want it to feel transactional. But there's only so many hours in the day.
That's one of the hardest things I've dealt with is like my social media. Because at some point, you know, I hired like an assistant to help with my social media, to help with like DMs and stuff. And then, you know, as I'm reviewing it, it's like, that's not how I would respond to a follower, even though it was not that big of a picture, but I care so much. And like, for me, like, keeping my voice authentic. So for me, I've never personally wanted anyone to help with my social media, which is surprising because a lot of people think, wow, with 1 million followers, you must have someone like posting all of your stuff. And I'm like, no, it's still me doing my content, because to hand it over to someone, I think it would lose my voice, and I would just care so much about what is going like on social media. And I mean, like you said, like establishing those deep relationships. And I mean, we see it in our retreats. Like, there is something special about what we're doing with our retreats. I mean, yes, we're going to these really cool places and you get like a really fun experience to travel and like meet new people. But I mean, we walked away from our Cape Town retreat and there was one girl, literally, I asked her like, how has this retreat been for you? And she started bawling, crying, there's a video on my Instagram, which I shared because this video was so impactful towards me. And of course, like that video also didn't do so well on social media, like didn't get as many views, but I'm like, I don't care. Like if it doesn't get that many views, like this is the stuff that I want to share right now. Like it's real. Like these, like literally people are coming on a retreats and they're telling me, for example, we've had this, her nickname's Mama Kim. She's 65 years old. She came with her daughter to Denmark in August, and they came back to Cape Town here in February, and she's 65 years old. In Denmark, her knees were hurting so bad. She couldn't lunge. She had so much inflammation. Now she says she's lost 15 pounds. Literally, she was like lunging in front of me in Cape Town. I was like, Mama Kim, be careful. Like, she's like, I just want to show you that I can lunge now. She's like, Lauren, you have no idea how much like these retreats have literally like changed my life. And she's already signed up for our Ireland retreat. But I'm like, these are the type of relationships, like now that I'm done competing, I'm like, this is why I have felt like I'm just like, I no longer get the same fulfillment I do training 4 to 6 hours a day. It just almost felt like I was like getting bored in the gym training. And now that I'm able to travel and like meet these really cool people who like are almost becoming like really good friends now, like I'm like, this is like where I feel the most fulfillment.
That's so special. There's something to be said around just natural maturity, right? Where it's just like there's so much energy that goes into exhausting the physical, which we have, right? Like you finish basketball, you have that in your 20s. You're like, I have this song inside. I got to like share it physically. But then you start to get those whispers, like you said, the quad talking to you, the elbow talking to you, the aching knees, the mindset where it's kind of knocking on the door of like, hey, the end is near. And the end doesn't have to be a negative end. It just means we're going to shift gears a little bit. For you, it's cool to hear you say like, hey, like the physical wasn't as fulfilling anymore, but now there's this cerebral, energetic movement that's kind of taking place that you're diffusing into your Grown Strong retreats, into experiences and relationships like that, which is so special.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is like, kind of, it's just crazy how there's always new chapters in your life. And I think my mom said it best. Like there was a journal I found when she passed away, she had written in, and you know, one of her lessons was like, you know, it might be scary at first to try new things, but it always works out. So I think like that really hit home for me. And she also had said like, follow your heart, because like your heart really knows what it wants to do. And so for me, I was feeling that in my heart, like that this was the end of my career. And even walking off the floor of the very last CrossFit Games event with everything that had gone on, I was like so emotional just from like the whole weekend, but also too, I'm like, this is the very last time I'm probably going to step onto the CrossFit Games floor. I don't think I'm going to do this again. So I was very emotional, like walking off the floor, because I'm never going to get that feeling again of like, just when I was like looking around before the final event, looking out at all the spectators, and you know, they're all there to watch us. Like, how often do you get to be at the top of like your athletic career to be able to do something like this? And, you know, walking off was just so emotional. But it's the same thing when I ended my career for basketball in high school. I was like also very emotional, like nervous about, is this CrossFit thing really going to work out? But it always works out. Even though it might be scary at first, you just kind of have to take that leap of faith and throw yourself into uncomfortable situations, because you never know where it's going to lead you.
Totally. Wow, that brings up so much. There's a song by the band Perry where there's a line that says, it's funny how when they die, people start listening. And I think, you know, I don't know if you relate to this. My mom used to say before we'd ever leave the front door, she'd be like, do it right. Don't do anything you have to look over your shoulder about. And I'd be like, Mom, I know, you say it every day. Like, and it was so annoying. Or she would call and like, you know, give me some sort of mom advice. I'm like, Mom, I can't talk on the phone for 45 minutes. Like, I need 10 to 15 minute intervals. I got shit to do. Now it's like, I repeat those phrases to myself every day. And it's easy. Life gets distracting. You get temptation. You get all the things. But it's like, those sayings live rent-free between my ears now. And I don't know, for people listening, like for your loved ones, like don't wait. Text them now. Call them now. Let them know you love them now. Take advantage of the now. And I don't want to speak for you, but it's like I would give anything to see my mom's name pop up on my phone. Like just to see a text, just to see a call. Like some of those moments are just, they're really special. And I remember when you went through the experience, nobody has the right words. Grief is confusing. It makes both of us tear up. We feel an energetic connection, but it's just like, I see you, I hear you, and I'm here. What has it been like kind of navigating the grief? It's still very recent for both of us losing our mom. Mine was in July, yours was in October. What kind of comes to mind when you think about her very special memory in your life and how you're carrying that forward now?
I mean, my mom makes me smile just thinking about her. I mean, she could make anyone smile in the room. And I just hope like one day I can be just as good as my mom like was to me. It's just like she loved me so much. And like you said, like I was literally telling Rasmus the other day, I was like, I miss my mom. Like literally I would talk to my mom every day. I would call her and my mom every single time would be like, hi, sweetie. Literally every single time, like so excited to hear me, even if I was just calling to ask her about like, I don't know, some random thing. Literally always so excited to see me. She also always picked up the phone. Like I could always count on my mom picking up the phone. And that like, I miss that. I miss just like, calling to update her about just like random things. And also just listening to her talk for like 45 minutes and me not even saying a word and just her talking about the randomness of her day. And I miss that. And like, seeing other people like, with their moms, and it just like makes me sad because, I'm never going to have that like anymore because like my mom isn't here, but I know she's like going to be there in a different way. And it's just like really sad to think that I won't have that anymore.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I said that same thing. So when my mom passed, I brought a healer into my life and I said that same thing. I was like, I feel so alone. I'm missing that feminine energy. I feel like I can't trust anybody or authentically share with anybody what's going on in between my heart, my head, all these things. And we had this in-depth conversation of like, you have to listen to the whispers of the human experience. And that was in some ways, my mom loved hummingbirds. So it was like seeing hummingbirds. It was paying attention to things in different ways that previously I was like, I just got to get to the gym. I got to train, or I got to go coach, or I got to go do a podcast. It was learning to press pause in the messy middle. And it's like if you and I are fighting or laughing or doing the thing, we're in the pool and we're making all these splashes and bubbles in the pool. You can't really see. There's no clarity. But then when we just press pause for a second and we just wait, all of a sudden the water settles and we gain clarity. And so that's the analogy that he kind of gave me. And I was like, whoa. Now it's like I'll be thinking about my mom and I'll see this particular hummingbird hanging out a little bit longer. Or I'll notice the smell of certain scents of flowers. Or I'll notice, oh, you just said that. My mom used to say that. And it's not really like anything tangible, like I can feel her like a hug, but I can feel her presence and kind of the nuance of the human experience. And I'm like, whoa, I couldn't see that before. I didn't have that clarity or those lenses or maybe that additional sense of intuition. But over the course of time, that sword's kind of been sharpened. I'm like, ooh, I want to pay that forward to other people that maybe go through that.
I actually really love that because I've also noticed that myself, like when you do slow down and just like listen or see the little signs. Rasmus and I just bought a new house in San Diego.
What?
And I actually hadn't even seen the home either because my brother's a real estate agent. So he was looking at the home while we were away. So this was my first time seeing it in person. And we went there and immediately in the front, there's a row of flowers. And my mom had planted these flowers all in our backyard in Manteca. Like we had these like purple flowers were near our pool. And it was the same row of flowers. And I was like, that's my mom. Like, this is a good sign this home is okay. Because literally those are the same flowers that my mom loved. And I told Rasmus, I'm like, we're not getting rid of these flowers. Like, they're going to stay there.
Yep.
Even like when we were in Nicaragua in December, I remember going to the church and we were just like sitting there quietly. And like, I looked over to the right and I saw this tree and it had the same flowers that were in my mom's like wedding bouquet. And I was like, there's my mom again. Or like randomly I'll be like in the car just thinking about my mom and like I'll hear a song that just like, that's a song we used to listen to together. And so like there's these like little moments that like she's like popping up everywhere. And I mean, one of the craziest stories that I definitely know my mom was around. So it was 2 weeks after my mom had passed away. I was competing at Rogue Invitational, and my mom always told me, Lauren, do not compete with your cross necklace because you're going to lose your cross necklace in the middle of competing. It's going to break off. Like, don't compete with it. I was wearing my mom's cross necklace that she had worn when she passed away, and it was like, I felt like my mom's presence was with me, and I was like, thinking to myself, I was like, I really want to wear it competing this weekend because it'll make me feel like my mom is there with me. Long story, that night, literally the next day when I was going to compete at Rogue, I lost the necklace. The chain had broken off. I didn't see where the cross was. And I was like, Rasmus, I lost the cross. The chain was broken. So we were searching all around the hotel room. We couldn't find it. I was like bawling, crying, like right before I'm about to compete the next day. I took my shirt off. Not even kidding you, Bryce. The cross was like etched into my skin. Like it was literally attached to my skin, the cross was.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, this
from like laying on it or something?
I don't know, laying on it or whatever, but it was like literally in my skin. So I pulled it off my skin and I was like, Rasmus, it's right here. I was like, this is a sign my mom did not want me to compete with the cross necklace on. I was like, and then that night I had also a dream. She came to me and she said like, I'm fine. And that was the only time I've seen my mom in a dream, but it was like literally like a poof. She's like, I'm fine. And then she went away like really quick. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, she is definitely like still here, just in different ways.
That's so cool. I love that so much. And I also just love that like when you've, come toe to toe with adversity, like you can lean on Rasmus. What does it mean to have such an invaluable partner that loves you and cares about you so much, but that you guys can really be lifelong teammates to kind of overcome different chapters of life, loss of loved ones, family members moving away, different financial challenges, going to visit family, trying to figure out the online program, trying to figure out marketing, apparel, social media, and then obviously the logistics of these retreats. What does it mean to you have somebody that you can love and trust so much, and also somebody that, tests the boundaries a little bit, like buying a house without you seeing it?
Yeah, that's true. That's only typical Rasmus would do that.
Yeah, 100%. Razzle dazzle.
It means so much to me to like have the most supportive partner. I mean, Rasmus works so hard, and like he would literally do everything, and I literally wouldn't need to do anything. Like he wants to make sure like our future is taken care of, and he'll literally work so hard for us. And every day I just think about how grateful I am to have someone like him who just like holds our retreats together, like holds our financials together, like will do everything. And some days I'm like tired in the morning and he has to like wake up like early, and just he tells me to keep sleeping longer, and then he goes out to do something like with the house renovation or whatever, and I'm just like sleeping in bed nice and warm while he's going out to do something. And it's just like, I think when you like find the person who like really like supports you, and like obviously I want to make sure though he's also supported, so I'm doing different things, but it's not to the same extent he is. Like I feel like he's really in the day-to-day grind, and like he really tries to just make sure that I'm like comfortable and supported. And for me, every day I'm just reminded how grateful I am to have someone like him. And not only that, but I'm like, he's just so fun to be around, and he makes things so lighthearted, or he'll randomly do something that's also so caring. Like a year after my mom passed away in October, he had put together like a little surprise. So he's like, hurry, let's go. And I was like, where are we going? And like, he had grabbed our breakfast and stuff, put it away in a bag. And like, we started driving, and I knew immediately when we were like about to pull up to the cemetery, and like, literally we had our breakfast like on my mom's like memorial and stuff on the grave. And just like to be there with like my mom, like 1 year after she passed away, with my husband who had just like made breakfast in the morning, like how thoughtful is that? Like he'll just randomly do things like that. And I'm like, geez, I am like the luckiest girl in the world.
That's so cool. The fact that he continues to push is so inspiring to me, because it's the transferable skills from CrossFit into the next arena of life. And you and I have seen it time and time again with basketball. Like people didn't make it, and then they're still trying to make it in the 24-hour fitness. And then you see it in CrossFit. It's like, okay, like, I've done it as long as I could, but like, I'm still hanging on. I'm still doing the thing. I'm injured tenfold. I'm trying to make it masters now. And it's like, it's cool to, realize like, hey, I'm going to close that door peacefully and I'm going to take the step into the next chapter. But it's not easy. Like that transition, that in between where your identity, where everywhere you go, it's like, maybe at one point it was, hey, how was basketball? I saw you on ESPN, or I saw this, I saw that. And then it transitioned to CrossFit. But then you get to the next phase and, obviously you've established Grown Strong now, but it's like some people might be like, hey, what do you do now? And It's like depreciating to your like identity, but in your mind, you followed your heart's center, but it's very like misunderstood to the world that's like used to viewing you in this, capacity.
Oh, I get so many people now all the time like, hey, what do you do now with all your free time? And I'm like,
zero free time.
I have a full-time business, Grown Strong, like an online fitness program for women. On top of that, we're planning out retreats. Obviously, we have 3 more retreats coming up later this year. And then we're already looking at 2026, how to line up more retreats in the following year. And it's just not something that you just casually do. Like, this is my full-time business. Yes, it looks a little different than someone who works a 9 to 5. And I appreciate those who work 9 to 5, but I'm like, it's so different. You never stop working. Like even on our Sundays, you're constantly thinking about business. And that's kind of how it was when I was competing. I had like Thursdays and Sundays off. So like Thursdays and Sundays were my days to spend more time on Grown Strong. And I was really like trying to build this because I knew at some point I wasn't going to be able to compete forever. So I wanted this to be like the avenue that I would step into post like competition. And I'm so grateful I have that because I really do think my identity I would be even more lost if I didn't have Grown Strong, because I would be like, okay, what now? Like, let me try to start a business from square one. But now I really have this fulfillment and purpose. And now with Grown Strong too, like our online fitness program, like now that I'm not training 4 to 6 hours a day, I can actually, do our fitness program that our members are doing and actually, have feedback for our online coach and actually do the program and see what our members are doing and share my progress and my journey. And that to me is like so fulfilling. And I'm like, I have no free time. I'm like, we're so busy. And now that we bought the house, there's going to be new home renovations and obviously traveling. So I'm like, yeah, not just, casually just sitting on the couch now that I'm retired. There's definitely a lot to be doing.
Totally.
Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinyon Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinyon is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag or even an overnighter. Kinyon's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinyon.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey.
I had this conversation with somebody recently. They said the famous line, hey, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I was like, that sounds great, but like very relatable to you guys and what you're doing with Grown Strong. Like I work way more now than I ever did previously. Like it is nonstop all the time between all the marketing, the payroll, like trying to set up podcasts, scheduling, merchandise, coaching, in-person, remote, social media. It is so fun. It doesn't feel like horrible, but you're one person. There's 24 hours in a day. You try to allocate, 6 to 8 of those hours for sleep. 4 to 6 of those are dedicated towards like training and service of other people. And you're like, okay, I need maybe 60 to 90 minutes for personal training, like for yourself. And then you're like, wow, when you foster in relationships, you foster in adventure, travel, like just basic errands.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, there's not that much time for, you're fitting in calls. There's brand connections. There's all these different things that land on your schedule. You can come in with a plan, but that plan inevitably gets discombobulated for sure.
Exactly. I mean, I thought I'd have, like, obviously I thought now that I'm not training as much, I'm like, I'm going to knock through my whole to-do list, like, within the first 2 weeks. And I'm going to, like, have so much more time for, like, I'll be able to, like, train, sauna, do all of this. But I'm like, geez, then there's all of these random things that keep popping up. And I'm like, I can never get caught up. I'm like, it's constantly something. And so I'm like, I'm like, how did I ever train as much as I did and have time for Grown Strong? And I'm like, I really didn't have that much time for Grown Strong. Rasmus was like running the full behind the scenes, and now I'm like, I definitely have more time, but then there's all of these little things that come up. I mean, you say like errands. I mean, I had to go take my car in the other day, and then by the time you take the car in and go, then someone like my dad needed me to go like put some like frozen meat away because he's gone, and it's just like all these random things pop up, and I'm like, where did my day go?
Yeah, getting the car serviced, a dentist appointment, going to the grocery store, fixing a leaky pipe, having to, take the trash out, do something for the dogs, do something for your dad. They're little micro moments of just like time suckers. They're like, you're happy to do them.
Yeah.
They need to happen. They're mastering the mundane within the human experience, but it's also just like taking away from this other thing. Everything costs something, right? Looking back at your career, Lauren, we talked briefly around the ankle. Then you later navigated the challenges with the elbow. What was that experience like where you had this newfound intrinsic motivation to go to Iceland? Your mom was going through cancer treatment over here. You're challenged to be in two places at once. You're trying to rekindle, this going to the CrossFit Games, maximizing your human potential. You're overcoming this injury, which I've seen you do numerous times, which is very freaking impressive. Like, you always seemingly find a way to train in and around the injury, which it sucks. It's lonely. It's away from the group. It's typically programmed by somebody outside of the community that you're used to. But you always did it. And you kept going. And it was, I don't know, as a fanboy, it was fucking dope. But then you go to Iceland. Now there's all these expectations. It's you, Annie, Con Porter, Tola. What was that experience like?
I mean, that was one of my favorite experiences, moving to Iceland, but it was also like one of the probably really scary because obviously I just found out that my mom had cancer. And so I just remember having that conversation with my mom, like, Annie just asked me to do team for the CrossFit Games, but like I'd moved to Iceland, and I remember my mom was like, what are you going to do for me here? I'll be going through chemo. Like, you're not going to do much for me here. She was like, go follow your dreams and do the team with Annie. And like, you never know where it's going to take you. And so that's what I did. I ended up then moving to Iceland, listening to my mom, and like went after my dreams. Because how often does like two-time fittest woman on earth, Annie Thorsdottir, ask anyone to do a team for the CrossFit Games? I was like, this is such a really cool opportunity. I'll be able to see how she trains and just, get better as an athlete, because obviously every year you're trying to prove to yourself like how much better you can actually get. And so, yeah, moving there and like experiencing the culture and just how welcoming the community was, and just like how funny and how big of a goofball Annie was. Like, I thought it was going to be so serious and I wouldn't be able to hang with her, but it was like so far from the truth. Like, we would just laugh and laugh most training sessions. And yeah, it was just like the boys would just be like, geez, can you guys just take it more seriously? Like, we would just be having a good time. And then obviously Con has like great energy too, and Tola, like, they're amazing. But yeah, it was very scary. And I did plan out, trips to come back when my mom like had a hysterectomy, like a surgery. So I did like plan trips to come back, but obviously it was very hard to like come back and see my mom like losing her hair and just like not looking like herself and just looking so weak. But she was just so strong and just like so strong through the whole process. And it just like made me like, I felt like I was doing it for my mom. Like, I just wanted to like, this was for her. And then like that same season though, like literally right before the CrossFit Games, I felt like a little rubber band snap in like my tricep lat region right before the CrossFit Games.
That spot too is just like a little junction that everything attaches.
Exactly. This was like 2 weeks again before the CrossFit Games. It was right when we had done our training. So we had flew from Iceland to, I think, Michigan for a training camp. And like, of course, that happened just probably after like the long travel and stuff. And then like I couldn't even pick up a 45-pound plate later. I literally could not do anything with my upper body. And I was like, great. I've been training so hard for this, and now this like major injury. I've been feeling so healthy all season. So we were trying to do whatever I could to get healthy again. And then we had to fly in like Katrin, David's daughter, to come in because potentially she was going to take my spot on the team. And I mean, we didn't even know if I was going to be on the team until like an hour after we were supposed to check in for the CrossFit Games. So we were already behind the check-in, like individuals were checking in and our team hadn't checked in. And then I just was like, so just heartbroken because like my parents had flown out to come watch me, and obviously my mom had undergone all this. And I was like, I moved to Iceland, like literally when my mom was going through this cancer treatment, it was all could have just been for nothing. Like I'm not even going to be able to compete at the CrossFit Games. And then the boys ended up choosing me to compete at the games, obviously knowing there was an inherent risk with my injury. And then obviously the games just didn't end out the way that we wanted to. And again, it's just like, you know, life throws you obstacles or like injuries, and you just like, you think it's the worst thing ever. I just remember walking away from that CrossFit Games and I was just like crying and crying. It was the worst I've ever felt. Like, you know, you can have injuries and go through that by yourself, but then to feel like you let your team down, like that was the worst I have felt in a long time. And I just remember I was like, you know, I don't want my CrossFit career to be ended or to end because of this season. Like I want to prove that I'm so much better than this. And so that kind of drove me the following year and like lit a fire to like really go after like competing individually the following year. I did fall short at semifinals like by 3 places, but I did feel like inside that I felt like one of the fittest. And then that same year I qualified for Rogue Invitational, and then obviously then my mom passed away and stuff. So I think constantly I had every year just like a new why of why I wanted to compete, which is like why it drove me.
Totally. And now looking backwards, like in the moment, like you said, it's the worst thing ever. But what a beautiful experience to navigate that level of uncertainty in something that is now going to give you the skills and the intangibles for later in life when uncertainty is inevitably going to knock on that door. I think I've shared with you before, like part of the ideation of ALLSMITH is you're either in adversity, you just left it, or you're approaching it. That's every human on the planet. And so when you look at the specificity of that experience, it's like for a moment, you're like, man, I put in all this work and I'm not going to get the opportunity to showcase it. And then you're like, whoa, I don't feel loved or validated from my team because they have to have a potential alternative, which doesn't feel good. But if I was on their side and I take the perspective, I understand. But then you have the CrossFit drama that comes with that. The media, I'm sure people like you talked about when you have a social media following, you've been in the space and been a CrossFit legend for over a decade like you have. There's eyes, ears, judgment, all the things that come with it. In my opinion, completely unnecessary. But it is what it is. It's part of sport. It's part of, you know, the nature of what you sign up for when you're pursuing your peak expression. Then you fast forward, you have the challenging experience with the dip thing, and like everybody's asking you, and you're like, what I loved about that, Lauren, which is so freaking cool, I wanted to tell you this. You're just like, I did the best that I could. There was no excuse. There was no like, I blame this, I blame that. It's like, hey, I had an injury. I got out there, I gave my best effort, and I came up short. Yeah. And it didn't feel good. But I think that something about that changed you in such a beautiful way, where you're like, whoa, it can't really get worse than this. And now moving forward, I know how to take ownership and accountability, which is going to make me so much better later in life. But fuck, it doesn't feel good in the moment.
Oh my gosh, I've literally felt like a failure. I was like, this is the most embarrassed I've ever felt competing at the CrossFit Games, when you're just like failing dip after dip. And like your team can't do anything. They're just standing there and everyone's just watching, and your judge keeps going no rep, and I'm not even close to even getting the dip. It's just like, that was like the worst I've ever felt in any event competing in CrossFit.
But here you are. You made it to the other side. You've survived every level of adversity along the way. Like, how does that feel now, knowing that that's in your rearview mirror?
Oh, it feels so good. And also just to realize like it's one moment in time.
Totally.
Then in that moment in time, it seems like the worst moment in time, and that's all anyone thinks about. But everyone forgets and moves on. And I mean, similar to Michael Jordan, like you're going to have so many missed shots, so many failures in life, but you just like, you need to keep going and overcoming that. And I mean, if you only had success and that's all you ever known, you're never going to grow as an athlete or a person. Like you need to go through those hard times, through those tough moments in order to grow as a person, or as an athlete or as a business person, whatever you're doing in your life. That's how you become the best possible version of yourself.
Totally. So well said. And I love that you made it through that. It's pretty special. Fast forwarding to last year's CrossFit Games, very difficult, uncomfortable to discuss, but also heavy on the heart, and also has changed some things within the future landscape of the word CrossFit, the business of CrossFit, which is up for sale again. Looking back at your experience, incredibly emotional. First event, Lazar Dukic goes down in the swim event. Very scary, very emotional. What came up for you, Chandler, Jesse, and Josh, as you guys are trying to figure out and information gather, and then figure out how your weekend's going to play out after all of the hard work that you put in?
I just remember like before the event, like we're about to go, you know, like we're 2 minutes out of the event, and I'm like, we're ready to go for the CrossFit Games. Like we're feeling the fittest we've ever felt. This event, we had pretty much almost practiced in full because we had bought a paddle. Like we were so ready. And I just remember that energy and that adrenaline before like the start of 3, 2, 1, go. And you know, they're like 60 seconds out, and I was like the first runner too. And I was like, okay, this is going to be the start of our CrossFit Games. I was so ready. 30 seconds, you know, you're just like, you're getting antsy to go. 15 seconds, and then they're like, okay, 1 minute delay or whatever. And then we're like, okay,
your
great.
Heart rate is just
you're just
super
so
high,
hot, just completely drops. And then we're like, 1 minute delay. Then we're about to go again. And then they're like, all right, 5 minute delay. And then we're just like, what is going on? And then someone was like, they're searching for someone. Someone is out there. And like, I just remember, I was like, this can't be real. Like, why are they searching for someone at the CrossFit Games? Like, everyone has to have come in. And then they were like, all right, all team athletes head back. Like, this event is canceled. And in that moment, Chandler knew, because obviously Chandler's been in the military. He's like, if they're still searching for someone has to, that person can't still be alive.
He understands the processes and procedures of search and rescue and safety.
And then when he found out that it was Lazar, like Chandler obviously was very close to him and immediately just like broke down crying. And all of us were just like completely stunned, just like so sad, and just like, how could this happen, like at the CrossFit Games? And I remember we all got in the car, and it was just like silence in the car. We didn't even know what to say, and we all just drove back to the hotel, had no information like whatsoever about anything. So we're like trying to look on our phones to see anything, and you know, like there was no information being given, and it was just like, how could this happen? And then I remember then they were like, okay, we're gonna have all the athletes come and meet to talk about how we're going to move forward with the CrossFit Games. So then we all went to this meeting, and Chandler was just like so hurt by the situation. And inside, he didn't want to compete anymore, but he also didn't want to be like the person there who would tell the other athletes like, hey, I don't think like we should compete anymore. So he decided to stay back while me, Josh, and Jesse went to the team meeting. And it was kind of just chaotic. Like it was just like too many heads in one kitchen about like what was going on. And it was just like crazy to just like that the CrossFit Games, something like this, like it just felt like there was no plan, like that. And then to then have like, you know, Dave Castro then said like, oh, the family, you know, wanted you guys to continue to compete. But then later on, then now we hear about how potentially that wasn't the case. And it's just like, gosh. Just
the left foot not knowing what the right foot's doing. A lot of emotions in one space and one melting pot, trying to figure out, wow, there's a lot of investment put into this. There's a lot of time, energy, and attention put into the CrossFit Games. But also at the root of these challenges is a human.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was very challenging. And, I obviously wasn't in that room. You were there, and there's only the specificity of experience that people had in that space. Like you said, lots of cooks in the kitchen, lots of opinions being thrown around, and it elicited a lot of controversy. And you guys continued to participate throughout the weekend. How did that go? How was it, with the other athletes? How did you kind of navigate and host your emotions with your teammates, knowing the experience and that you could all feel the energy? You're all humans sharing in this frequency of like, hey, we're going to go try to do this thing, but it sort of feels right. It doesn't feel right. It's like you can't really give your best effort, but you're trying to. It's a very confusing experience. What was that like for you to try to continue the rest of the weekend after finding out that unfortunate news?
Yeah, I mean, it was like so hard to navigate the whole weekend. It's like, do you smile? Are you just sad? Like, how do you celebrate if you do well? Like, what is this like whole weekend? And, we had like a team meeting about whether or not we were going to continue. And I think also too, a lot of the other teams, like top teams, we had also asked them like what their plans were. And, it was so hard. Like Josh had sacrificed so much. Like he literally like moved to San Diego with his family to train for the CrossFit Games. Like this was his way of like sustaining a living with sponsors and stuff. If, he didn't compete, like his sponsors potentially like would drop him. And then also too, like they knew that like if we had won the CrossFit Games, I wanted to use that money to actually like write my book. I've always wanted to write a book, and I want to like write the story with my mom and everything. And so they're just like, Josh is like, if we don't compete and like, we go after this goal, like you're not gonna be able to write your book. And I'm like, Josh, it doesn't matter. Like I'll figure out another way and stuff. And so we all ended up deciding to compete, but it just didn't feel like ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like it was like, you're so emotional. That day before, we were just crying and so upset. And, like, they had that very long, like, athlete meeting, which took over 3 hours. Jessie was, like, ended up staying even longer. She woke up the next day so sick. She was, like, apparently had been throwing up all night. And so, literally, she had, like, her eyes were so puffy and swollen. And I was like, Jessie, are you okay? And she's like, I was up all last night throwing up, so sick. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like literally one thing after the next. And yeah, it was just the toughest weekend. And just, it's like, how do you even go through something like that? We all gave up so much and sacrificed so much, and then like had to compete in something like that.
Yeah, it's very difficult. As you fast forward to the now and you kind of look backwards at the experience, CrossFit seemingly is attempting to get a third-party investigation at that time. They're trying to make the best decision possible. There's lots of opinions circling around with different CrossFit athletes. There's this story from Lazar's family and Lazar. There's this story from Dave Castro and CrossFit. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, doubt, judgment, things getting thrown around everywhere. I kind of zoomed away at that time, kind of started focusing more on other aspects of life. But I couldn't help but have my heart kind of connected to be like, man, like this community did so much for me and my family. Like I obviously love and care about it in many ways, as do you. And now we're seeing the World Fitness Project. We're seeing High Rocks. We're seeing lots of things kind of float to the surface. As I alluded to previously, CrossFit's up for sale for the third time in the last, I think, 6 or 7 years. There's a lot of uncertainty associated with the sport. I don't know who their title sponsor is. I know it was Noble and then Go Ruck, and now it's kind of up in the air. The CrossFit Open just finished, which is obviously a really cool community event. Brings people together for 3 straight weeks. What do you think is the future of the sport?
I mean, I hope the future is going to turn around for CrossFit because, like you said, like it's given so much for you. It's given me so much. I mean, it's given me like my full life that I have. Like without CrossFit, I don't even know where my life would be. And it's such an amazing thing when the community like is together and feels like one. But right now it feels so divided like on social media. And it's just really sad to see because I really do think CrossFit has delivered so much, and there's a difference between like the CrossFit Games versus like CrossFit as a community. And I really do hope that we can like recover as a sport and maybe someone takes CrossFit over that really is going to make real changes that the athletes have been trying to talk about for years. Like, that would be beneficial for everyone, and I think could really make a huge difference in seeing CrossFit succeed in the future.
Yeah, very well said. I think the integration of some of the suggestions from the PFAA, Brent Fikowski, some of those guys that have been in the space for quite some time, as far as really integrating professionalism around judging and the safety protocols, just to ensure that something like that never happens again, just because the athletes are really pushing themselves to that edge, if not over the edge. And those things, they simply cannot happen. And I'm sending so much love to all those people as they navigate. And I hope that, like you said, somebody can kind of step in and keep the journey going. But the taste in my mouth doesn't feel the best about it right now. Like, that word, seemingly, when you put it into a search engine, brings up a lot of negativity, unfortunately, and I think is fearful to people around death, injuries, and things like that. But if you take all of the colorful nuance out of it, and you just look at its root, the methodology is freaking dope. And there's some cool things that can absolutely positively impact people's lives. You look at what you guys are doing with Grown Strong, what we're doing with ALLSMITH. You look at what's going on with Miranda Oldroyd and Hooli and what those guys are doing. Like, there's a lot of cool companies that have kind of sprouted from this, where they're incorporating, maybe it's sometimes functional bodybuilding, maybe it's endurance work, maybe it's play and jungle gym type stuff, but it's bringing that primal nature and that primal culture and emphasizing movement and making America healthy again, which I don't mean that from a political standpoint. I mean of, like, health is wealth. When you have your health, you have hundreds of dreams. When you don't have your health, you have one dream, which you and I know all too well in the navigation of cancer with our parents.
Yeah, I think CrossFit has given so much. And I mean, I feel like it's the best methodology to train. I mean, going to a CrossFit gym and doing like a class workout, I mean, it's always changing. You're never training the same. And I mean, it carries over to, like, when I was like, we were traveling and I was carrying like the suitcases and stuff. And I'm like, good thing I'm strong and can do like farmer care, or that I train like farmer carries at the gym, because it makes me able to carry these suitcases up like a load of stairs. Like, if the elevator's not working,
Totally.
Like, I'm fit enough to be able to do that. And all thanks to CrossFit.
For sure. Let's jump into Grown Strong. You guys have evolved it over the course of time. It started as an online fitness program. Then you guys have now different lanes that you can assimilate with specificity of goals. And then you brought on these awesome retreats that are just, they're looking so cool on social media. And I've talked to some of our mutual friends. We just launched our episode yesterday with Matt Bickle, and he was talking about how your retreat was so amazing and he had such a good time spending time with you guys. He was like, they are dialed in. Everything is so cool. And I was like, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you guys. But yeah, when you jump back into the origination of Grown Strong, like, where did it start? What's kind of the mission, and how has it evolved over time?
Yeah, so it actually started as apparel. Started back in 2014, and I came out with my first Grown Strong shirt at CrossFit Invictus, you know, to kind of give me an avenue to support my CrossFit journey. And I remember back then I was like, I could come out with a Lauren Fisher t-shirt that just says like Lauren Fisher, or I could come out with something that actually has meaning. And those two words, actually, back then I was always hashtagging Grown Strong whenever I was lifting. And I wish I had started the Instagram account back then, because it would have been much bigger.
Yeah, totally.
But I just hashtag like Grown Strong. I do like a clean and jerk, hashtag Grown Strong. And for me, like, those two words just represented how I grew up. Like, growing up with 3 older brothers, they always pushed me around, like threw me in the bushes, treated me like one of them, but you know, it made me strong. So I grew up strong, and that's where the two words Grown Strong came from. And I feel like it can resonate with anyone, whether it's the way you grow up, or maybe you're a military woman getting deployed, or maybe you have an eating disorder and you know you're overcoming that. Like, those two words Grown Strong can carry a lot of meaning, and it's really evolved over the years from just apparel. Then we launched the fitness program. I think in 2019 was when we launched it, because for me, I mean, in high school I was made fun of for being too bulky, too muscular. Everyone like made fun of me for doing CrossFit. So, and I still feel like back in like 2018, 19, like on social media, it was still like, feel like women in the fitness space were still growing, like to have like, you know, look a little bit muscular was a little bit different. And so I really feel like there was a niche that was missing within like the functional fitness space for women to, you know, you're not going to just lift 5-pound dumbbells and think you're going to get strong. Like, you actually do need to throw some weight, like on a barbell, or lift a little bit heavier. And it's so beneficial for women. And so that's where then we launched a fitness program for Grown Strong. And, you know, we offer 4 different programs. So depending on time or equipment, you're able to follow it anywhere throughout the world. And then we started the retreats in 2018, around the same time, I guess, as the fitness program, but that was more, it was like a Lauren Fisher retreat. Like, we didn't really launch Grown Strong retreats until like about a year ago. And, you know, we've always enjoyed traveling and fitness. Like, that's just like right up what Rasmus and I like to do. But originally it was just like 1 a year, and that was more like a hobby. And then in 2024 or 23, we launched 2 retreats. And then this past year, we knew I was going to be done competing. So we're like, okay, let's plan out 5 retreats after I'm done competing and see if people actually sign up for these retreats, if we can turn it into a business. And people signed up. And now we went to Denmark in August. We went to Bali and Nicaragua this past year, all after the CrossFit Games, so within the span of like 4 months. And then we just got back from Thailand and Cape Town, South Africa. We had our biggest retreat to date in Cape Town. We had 23 participants. We always try to cap it at around 20 people. We found like that's a good mix. It's not a boot camp type retreat, so we're not working out like 3 or 4 times a day. That's not how Rasmus and I like to travel. You know, we like to work out to feel good, because then we're able to eat a lot of good food, and then we're also able to enjoy like our sightseeing experiences and not feel like, you know, just like bloated and tired and blah, like how you feel on vacation. So that's why we like to work out on our retreats. So we usually incorporate like 1 workout a day, and, you know, maybe it might be outdoors. We might work out in the park, or maybe we might work out at the beach. And then we'll have like 3 or 4 gym sessions throughout the week. And then, yeah, you meet really cool people. And I know some people are like really nervous to come on it by themselves and have no idea what to expect. And then by the end of the week, it's always so cool. And they're always like, when's the next retreat? I'm signing up for the next retreat. So we have a really high return rate. We had 10 or 11 people show up to Cape Town who are returning members of our retreats. One of the girls, Michelle, it was her 8th retreat with us. She actually had just been in Thailand the month before that. We have this other guy, Justin, who's now been on 5 retreats with us. And then there's 2 others who will now be entering the 5 retreat club. So we came out with this like special like 1% club for those who have been on 5 retreats with us. But yeah, it's slowly growing. But for us, I think, honestly, there's something different about the retreats. Like, we love doing the fitness program, and it, you know, I feel like target a lot of people with that, but with the retreats, you're able to actually meet everyone in person and get to talk with them. Like, why did you sign up for this? Like, what are you looking to get out of this? And, you know, really like make a difference. And it's like establishing those connections, those relationships. And like, it's pretty cool. Like, the guy who helped us with the South Africa retreat actually came on our Bali retreat a year ago. And he was like, hey, if you guys ever want to do a retreat in Cape Town, I'd love to help you guys organize it. So then he helped us with the Cape Town retreat. And then we have this girl, Jane, who's been on 5 retreats with us, and she's helping us with our Ireland retreat because she's from Ireland. So like, it's just like, it's going to be an epic trip. So we always we want to give you the most local experience possible too at any of the places we go. And it's not like your typical like tourist vacation.
Mm-hmm. I've heard nothing but great things. And I love that you guys are, I'm sure in the beginning, the retreats were incredibly chaotic, and then you're refining them. You're learning, you're enrolled in the process. You start as a white belt, and now a few years later, you've evolved. You're taking on new relationships. Like you said, authentic local experiences. You're understanding the most convenient and affordable places to stay, the food, the ambiance, the specifics of sightseeing, where it's not all sightseeing, but it's not all movement. It's also not all this. You also are appropriately integrating downtime for people to kind of rest and recharge, so it doesn't feel like every ounce of the day is kind of programmed and planned out. I'm stoked for you guys. I got to get my ass out to one of those.
Yeah, we got to get you to come on one of the retreats. I think you'd really enjoy it, and also connect with everyone as well.
Totally. And I love that you mentioned the online fitness programs are amazing. They're helping people remotely. They're scalable, which is great. But there's something to be said about the human experience that can't be just like seen or heard. Like, it has to be felt. And you can't really feel that online all the time. Like even this, like we could very easily have you on a screen. It's not the same.
No, it's not the same.
It's not the same. It's super cool to see you guys growing and evolving, and congratulations on the new purchase of the home. It means you guys will be local for a little longer, which is rad. Lauren, what's next for Lauren Fisher and Rasmus? Think there's little kiddos on the way?
Eventually, yeah, we want to start a family.
Cool.
And, just, I guess, get settled in San Diego, because we have been all over the place. I feel like the past 3 years or 2 years, it's just been really a lot. And so I'm excited to now like settle in San Diego, and then obviously be able to still travel for our retreats and focus more on Grown Strong, and just, building out the vision we have for it. Like you have so many goals and ideas, but it's like putting those all into picture. And I think now that I'm retired, I have more time to actually make those all happen.
That's super cool. Lauren, where can people find you?
They can find me on my Instagram at Lauren Fisher, or you can check out my website, lauren-fisher.com, to check out more for my fitness program, Grown Strong. You can go to grownstrong.com. And if you want to check out the retreats, it's also on Grown Strong, or you can go to retreats.grownstrong.com. But I'll be sure to give a special discount to the ALLSMITH,
Cool.
so we can create a little special discount code for the retreats and the fitness program. We can link it in the show notes.
Very cool. I would love that. Yeah, I'm so thankful that we were able to carve out some time and some energy to visit with one another around our busy schedules.
It was amazing, and we definitely need to catch up more, Bryce.
For sure. Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation with CrossFit legend Lauren Fisher, please rate, review, subscribe, and as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Until next time.